In August, the LSAT goes back inside a testing center for almost everybody. At-home testing for the LSAT is ending. After about 6 years, you're no longer taking it on a webcam from home at the kitchen table. You're back to going in person in a testing center with an in-person prompter the whole time. And a lot of folks are thinking this is the thing that finally makes law school easier to get into. But at the same time, you've got to consider that more than 75,000 people applied to law school this cycle, almost a third more than 2 years ago. And they're walking in with the highest LSAT and GPA medians ever. And so the question everyone is asking right now is, with the LSAT going back to in-person, will law school admissions finally get easier? The short answer is no. If you've been tracking the medians, you might know that your target school's median might have been a 170 when you started studying for the LSAT, but now it's a 172. And so you're chasing a number that moves while you're running at it. The ground really is shifting under you. Now, there are two things that are supposedly about to crack this open and change the game. Some people are thinking the switch back to in-person testing in August is going to change things. A lot of other folks also aren't aware that there is this demographic cliff. Some of you may have seen it in the headlines. But let's talk about how we got here first. A couple of years ago, a 170 LSAT score was like a golden ticket, 97th percentile, at or above the median at nearly every single law school except maybe a couple at the top. But now, people get a 174 and could still end up on a wait list. A perfect 180 with a strong GPA isn't a lock on the top 14 anymore. Even with perfect numbers, still not a lock. And most people blame logic games going away. But LSAC's own data shows the score climb actually started about 7 years ago before they removed logic games. In other words, scores were already rising before logic games was removed from the test. But there are a lot of other changes that led to the LSAT score inflation. One of them being that LSAC doubled the number of testing dates. 4-year went to 8-year. They also loosened the LSAT retake limits, and they also rolled out LSAT score preview, which let you see your score first before deciding whether to cancel it and delete it if you don't like it. So imagine a student takes the LSAT in the fall, gets a 166, doesn't love it, cancels their score. Schools never see that 166. A couple months later, the student takes it again, gets a 171 and keeps it. So on the application, it is a 171, like the bad day never happened. Now, the median you're staring at on a school's website is not built from one and done scores. It's everybody's best of 3, 4, maybe even 5 tries. So you've got way more at-bats than anyone might realize. Now, GPAs have also been rising. LSAC says GPA inflation got so bad that college GPAs barely separate anybody now. So schools lean harder on the one number that still sorts people, being your LSAT. Now, there are a couple of things people think are about to knock numbers down a bit. I think they're wrong. The big number one, of course, is the August LSAT switch. The theory is that at-home testing made it easier for people to cheat, or at least more comfortable while taking it to get higher scores. You put everybody back in a locked room with a proctor, inflated scores fall back down. And there is something to that. LSAC basically said so. By their own numbers, remote testers are about 40% of all test takers, but they are the majority of LSAT score holds. A score hold, for those who aren't aware, is the flag they put on a result while they investigate it. So at home is the minority of test takers, but the majority of the flags. That's a big reason why they're going back to in-person testing. And if you only ever studied at your own desk in your own chair with your own coffee, that familiar, comfortable environment, taking it in person might rattle you a little bit. So what I would recommend is, of course, you take your practice tests under real conditions right now so that you'll stay calm on test day itself. So maybe scores will drop a little bit with the return to in-testing, but you can't bet your whole testing cycle on that. I think that would be a mistake because, of course, score holds are real, but they're not the main engine. They're not the biggest issue of all. The climb in scores is not due to cheating in most part, I don't think. It's more due to people retaking, people studying more of the score preview. And so all of that follows you into the testing center. And even if scores are going to drop a little bit, it's going to be a gradual, slow decline. Because if LSAC allows scores to drop significantly, that would basically confirm all the cheating, and LSAC doesn't want that headline. So if it does come down, it's going to come down quietly, slowly over time, not between now and the fall. And even if scores do deflate, it's not going to help you because if other people's scores deflate, yours are probably also deflating at the same time. If the LSAT median went from a 174 to a 171 at a top school for everybody all at once, you're probably in the exact same spot. It's not about your exact number. It's about how you compare to other people in the stack against everybody else applying. Deflation isn't really going to help you because you'll be affected just the same. Now, a lot of people are also placing their hopes on the demographic cliff, leading to a decline in the number of people applying to law school. For those who aren't aware, ever since the 2008 Great Recession, fewer kids were born. Birth rates declined. So the number of high school graduates peaked around 2025, near 3.9 million, and now it's going to slide in the coming years. By the early 2040s, maybe 13% fewer freshmen now, eventually fewer of everybody downstream, including law school applicants. So the thought is maybe you just wait it out. But one problem here is the timing. The cliff is an 18-year-old story. It's about the kids starting college right now, but the average law school applicant is not 18 years old. They're in their mid-20s, often older than that. And so the cliff isn't going to reach the law school applicant pool until the late 2020s at the earliest, more likely the 2030s. So if you're in high school, maybe it'll help you, but if you're applying in the next year or 2 or 3, it's not coming to save you. And right now, the pool is doing the opposite of shrinking. It's increasing, it's flooding. Applicants are up double digits 2 years running. When the white-collar job market gets shaky, people run back to graduate school the way they did after 2008. A laid-off consultant and analyst whose job got automated, they're applying to law school with you. And so the pool got bigger and tougher all at once. The demographic cliff is real. I'm not saying it's not, but it's showing up years from now, and it's going to hit colleges first, a long way upstream from law school. Now, things are messy. I'm not going to pretend they're not. August 2026 into the next year, things are going to be shaky. No one really knows what's happening, to be frank, and nobody's recalibrated to the new LSAT score reality or the new testing platform. And so in a transition like this, if you're genuinely strong, the chaos could break your way. But you can't bet 3 years and 6 figures of tuition on that. So what you want to do is properly prepare. While everybody else is panicking about taking the LSAT in person and the new user interface, you've already run timed sections in those exact conditions. The test will feel normal to you and foreign to them. If you can get that level of comfort in a transition year like this, that gap is going to be huge. And so you focus on your skills on this test. The LSAT is 2 things right now. Logical reasoning is 2/3. Reading comp is the other third. No logic games, of course. These are trainable skills. And most people say by taking test after test, measuring their results, being happy or sad about those, and then moving on to the next. But the real work is, of course, going back into the test you just took and finding the reason you got each question wrong or had difficulty with each one. Maybe it's an assumption that you missed. Maybe it's the trap you walked into. You do that over and over until you stop falling for those tricks and traps. You understand the patterns of the test. And if you want my help getting your score up for the medians, to beat the medians whenever you're applying to law school, whether it's August, September, October, November, whatever you're taking it, I'm here to help you out. I'm offering a free LSAT tutoring lesson for everybody watching this now or later. You can book that free tutoring lesson with me personally at unpluggedprep.com/start. The link is below the video on YouTube, pinned in the chat on YouTube, in my bio on TikTok and IG. I've also put together a free LSAT cheat sheet to help you jumpstart your LSAT prep. It's a quick reference PDF download on everything logical reasoning and reading comprehension. You can grab that free cheat sheet at unpluggedprep.com/cheat sheet. Again, the link's below in the chat, in my bio as well. Happy to help you out. I see some questions here in the chat. I will get to as many of those as I can. Drop in anything and everything, LSAT and law school admissions, and I'll do what I can to help. Red and Cute's asking, Steve, why doesn't a bad GPA matter? Well, you can make a bad GPA irrelevant if your LSAT score is sufficiently high. Law school admissions is a function of your LSAT score and your GPA, everything else being a distant third. And to be frank, of course, everything matters to some extent, but it's all relative. Some things matter a lot more than others. And the number one factor in the law school admissions process is your LSAT score. It weighs more heavily than your undergraduate GPA, weighs a whole lot more than your soft factors like your application essays, your resume, and your rec letters. And so if your GPA is lower than you would have liked it to be, you're not alone. You can offset that with a higher LSAT score. Law schools love splitter applicants. They actually weigh your LSAT more than your GPA at virtually every single law school in the country. And of course, it's a lot easier to retake the LSAT than it is to redo all of undergrad. And so If your LSAT score is not what you would have liked it to be, I would recommend strongly retaking. The LSAT's offered 8 times a year. Coming up, we've got August, September, October, and November this calendar year. You could take any one of those LSATs. Hey, you could take all of those LSATs and still apply to law school this cycle. Bianca's asking, I've got a 3.4 GPA, hoping to aim for a 175 to a 179 on the LSAT. I'm a sophomore right now. How should I study? Well, kudos to you for planning ahead. I mean, you've got a year, 2 years, plenty of time to make literally anything happen. And to be frank, I don't think that you need 2 years or even 1 year necessarily, but more time can only help if you take it slow and steady. And so I would start by establishing a strong foundation in the different LSAT sections, the different LSAT question types. Broadly speaking, we can divide LSAT preparation into 3 major phases: accuracy, pacing, and endurance. Accuracy is building a strong foundation, building familiarity, getting the lay of the land in the different sections and the different question types, maybe drilling LSAT questions by type to better understand the proper perspective from which to view each section and each question type. Pacing is doing the individual sections, 35 minutes with standard timing to solve roughly 25 questions. You get the grab bag mix of all the different question types thrown together. Then you've got endurance, doing full-length timed practice tests so that test day itself will feel like just another run-through and you've done it all before. And so I divide your prep into those 3 major phases. Of course, whenever you're taking the LSAT, if you're taking the LSAT in 3 months, then you do 1 month devoted to each of those. If you're taking in the LSAT in a year, you could devote 4 months to each of those. It's your call. And of course, I'm not saying wait till the tail end to actually take a practice test, but each phase would have a particular focus based on how far along you are in your LSAT journey. And of course, there's not really a one-size-fits-all when it comes to developing a personalized study plan. Everyone's got their own unique weak areas. Everyone's got their own particular starting point, their own goals, and their time frame. And so if you want to talk through what a personalized study plan could look like for you, you could book a free LSAT tutoring lesson with me. The link's below the video, pinned in the chat, in my bio as well. From this mind says, I got a 160 and a 399 GPA from an Ivy League undergrad. I'm on the wait list for a handful of T14s. Good luck, fingers crossed for you. Your GPA is super strong. LSAT score is a bit less strong, of course. You'd be a so-called reverse splitter, high GPA, low LSAT. One thing you could do, not sure if it's too late for this since we're already in June, but if we were speaking a few months ago, my advice would have been retake the LSAT. If you can get it up 10 points, then you'll be in a much stronger position. You reach out to the school, you update them with a letter of continued interest saying, hey, law school, you're still my #1 choice. Here's what I've been up to since we last spoke, since I applied. I got this promotion at work. I got this award. I retook the LSAT, got 10 points more. Just some food for thought if you wanted to take another look at my application. I see Bianca's asking, what score is considered a low LSAT score? So when we say a particular number is low or high or good or bad, in my view, it's all relative to the medians of the law schools that you're targeting. A number is low if you're below the median. It's good if you're at or above the median. And I always want you to be above the median, in part because a median is a trailing number. It's a trailing metric. It's an indication of last year's entering class, and law schools are always looking to raise their numbers for the following year to boost their standing in the US News rankings and frankly, just to keep up with their competition. And so ideally, to maximize your odds of getting in and also to maximize the scholarship money that you can get, I would recommend aiming for an LSAT and a GPA that are at or above the 75th percentile of the law schools that you're applying to. And so I see some folks here looking at the T14s, the top 14 law schools. The top 14 law schools, their GPA medians range from 392 to 399. Their LSAT medians range from 170 to 174. And so if you're below a 392 on the GPA, you're going to want to be ideally at a 175 or higher to maximize your odds of admission and also get scholarship money ideally. And of course, within the T14, there's a range. I'm just giving you the broad strokes picture of things. If you want to look up the particular numbers, the particular medians, the 25th percentile, the 75th percentile for any given law school that you want to target, you can look up the American Bar Association 509 reports for any given law school. They will give you the official data containing all those numbers, so you'll get a sense of what you would need in order to be competitive. Great questions, folks. Just asking, just checking through here for more. I see calling outs asking, I did paper practice tests. Tactile learning is much better than screen learning. I'm actually old school myself. I prefer doing things on paper. You should know that the LSAT itself is administered on a computer in person at a prometric testing center for virtually everybody, starting with the August LSAT, with some exceptions for medical or distance reasons, geographic location reasons. Some folks will take it at home remotely, but even for them, it'll still be on a computer. You can get accommodations to take it on paper, but that's a rare circumstance. Virtually everybody, the vast majority of test takers, take it on a computer. So don't take your practice tests on paper if your actual one's going to be on a computer. If you want to study out of a physical textbook early in their studying, that's a different story, of course. But practice tests, I would recommend doing them on paper, on the computer, ideally. Kandindu saying, I've been scoring in the low 140s. I plan to take my LSAT in August. Any advice? Okay, so you've got about a month and a half. You're starting at the low 140s. What's your goal? I mean, what kind of number do you want to hit? Are you looking to improve 10 points, 20 points, 30 points? My advice would vary for you based on how much time you have until your LSAT. And to be frank, you might want to consider pushing back your test date just to give yourself a bit more time to achieve your fullest potential. I don't know how long you've been studying for or what you've been using to study, but in my personal opinion, any law school worth going to is going to require you to have an LSAT score in the 160s or higher, which would require at least a 20-point increase. And 20 points in less than 2 months is not going to be easy. It's possible, of course, not going to say it's not, but I couldn't offer you a promise or a guarantee that you'll be able to get 20 points in less than 2 months. Ultimately, your score improvement is going to be a function of the amount that you study and the way in which you study. And so if you've been hitting a wall, if you're stuck, if you feel like you need to change your approach, I would highly recommend it, because what you're doing may not be working for you if you're in the low 140s. I don't know how long you've been studying for. Again, I'm lacking the context here, so I'm not speaking to you directly here. I'm speaking to everyone who might be in that situation. I would encourage you to consider a different approach if you're not making progress and your test is coming up soon, because your LSAT score is the biggest, most important factor in the law school admissions process. And there are literally tens of thousands of dollars at stake, maybe even 6 figures, depending on what kind of law schools you want to target. And when you're in the low 140s, there's a lot of low-hanging fruit, a lot of foundational work to be done. So make sure that you have the proper support and the proper study plan to give you that strong foundation. It's easier than it used to be because, of course, logic games is no longer on the test, and so you can narrow your focus to just logical reasoning and reading comprehension. But within logical reasoning, you've got roughly 15 different types of questions. You've got, for example, strengthen, weaken, flaw, parallel, resolve, and so on. There's also reading comprehension to work on. That's a whole third of the test. Then you've got pacing and time management, doing individual sections and full-length exams to build up your endurance. And you're going to want to hit all of those areas to achieve your fullest potential. And that's a lot to do in just a couple of weeks or just a couple of months, ideally. And so I would say, you know what, if you're not hitting the 160s by early August, consider pushing back your test date to September, October, November. Those test dates are not too late. You could take any one of those LSATs and still apply to law school this cycle. And people will talk about the importance of applying early. And it is important to apply early if you can, but it's even better to apply a month or two later with a higher LSAT score than earlier with a lower LSAT score. There is not really a significant difference between applying to law school in the beginning of September versus the end of September or the beginning of October. And so think to yourself, if having, let's say right now you've got a month and a half, if you were to double that duration and give yourself 3 months, take the LSAT in September instead, that's going to do a lot to help you boost up your numbers. And so one thing we do for our students is we create for them a personalized study plan, laying out exactly what to do every single day from now till the test. That covers when to drill LSAT questions by type, when to do timed sections, when to take full-length practice tests as test day approaches. If you want to talk through what your personalized plan could look like, you can book a free LSAT tutoring lesson with me. The link to book that lesson is unpluggedprep.com/start. Links below the video, in the chat, in my bio as well. Happy to help you out. That's an open offer for anybody watching this now or later, by the way. And for those of you just joining, welcome. I do these lives every single weekday, same time, same place, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 Central, 11 Pacific, here on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, wherever you're watching this. If you find these helpful, please spread the word. The only way this grows is through word of mouth. I don't do any advertising for these lives, and the algorithm doesn't really boost them because they can't run ads during a live, so I do appreciate your support. Sharing this to your socials, sharing it to any pre-law societies that you're part of, any Discords or subreddits or Facebook groups. The more this grows, the more I'll expand it over time. Philip's asking, I just got a 309 GPA in environmental economics and policy. What should my goal score for the LSAT be? I mean, my thought would be, why not aim for a 180? Always aim for the highest LSAT score possible. Your GPA wouldn't affect the fact that a higher LSAT score is only going to help. When people ask this, of course, what they typically really mean is, what kind of LSAT score do I need to hit my goals? And my question is, what are your goals? I don't know what law school you want to go to. I don't know whether you want scholarship money or not. So if you can give me more context, I can give you a better answer. But ultimately, my answer will be the same, which is to aim for the highest LSAT score possible. Now, another question that you might be asking here is a 309 GPA good? Is a 309 GPA enough? And I said earlier that good is relative, but every rule has an exception. And so my thought is, let's look at the typical LSAT median, the typical GPA median, and then think about, is your number above or below that? And I don't know exactly what the typical GPA median is. There's no such thing as typical, really, because there's 200 different ABA accredited law schools, and each one has their own requirements. But due to rampant grade inflation, a 309 GPA is below most, if not all, the law school GPA medians. And so you're going to want to have a higher LSAT score to compensate for that. So look up the numbers of the law schools that you're thinking about that you want to go to and see what their medians are. Then I'll give you a better sense of what you might need. From This Mind is asking, what would you choose? A number 30 law school with a debt of $48,000 after graduation, or Penn number 4 law school with $200,000 in debt? Well, what do you want to do with your law degree? What do you expect your earning power to be? What do you expect your salary to be after you graduate? Because the kind of legal career that you pursue will determine your ability to pay off that debt. If you're going into big law, it's easier for you to make the loan payments on $200,000 in debt than if you take a public interest job where the salary is a lot lower. So basically the answer would be, you take a higher paying job post-graduation, taking on more debt could still be workable. If you're not taking on a super high paying job post-graduation, then the likely better decision would be the lower ranked law school with more scholarship money. I see a different commenter, Monty Python, saying public defender. If you're taking on a public defender job, of course, the salaries are a lot lower. And so then you wouldn't want to take on all that debt, and you probably wouldn't need to go to a number 4 law school. I see a follow-up comment here that you're saying you want to go into tech law, cyber policy, AI regulation, product counsel, in-house. Still a pretty large range. I don't know exactly what those salaries look like. I would look up those numbers first, because you have the numbers on what you're going to be owing, but you haven't shared the numbers on what you're going to be making. And so we need to have both sides of the equation. What are you going to pay? What debt will you take on the separate end of the equation post-graduation? What are you going to earn? If we know what you're going to earn, then we can model, okay, with this amount of income each year, I need this amount for living expenses. I need this much for family stuff. I need this much for room, board, rent, all that stuff. Then I can also make X monthly payments to service the debt. You want the full picture? Run those numbers now, of course. Then think about, what kind of law degree do you really need to get the job that you want? To what extent do you need prestige of the law school to help with that? And if you're looking at regional schools and regional firms, for example, then you might not need a T14 or a T6 or a T4 law school. It's possible that a T30 would still be good enough. Keep in mind that the rankings are national, but a lot of careers are actually local and regional to your state or your region. And so a law school might still have a sufficiently prestigious reputation, even in a local area, even if the national rankings are lower. I see Gaze is saying, so if a GPA and LSAT scores are inflating, what about in 4 years when a 4.0 and a 180 LSAT means nothing? Well, GPAs are inflating, and I can imagine a world where a 4.0 does not mean very much. But a 180 is still going to mean something, because the LSAT is determined along a spectrum, and LSAT score percentiles are rising as well, of course, but LSAC can easily adjust that by making the curve more brutal. And so by definition, they will have to do something about the curve on the LSAT to keep a 180 being a prestigious, unique score. GPA inflation, of course, that's a more distributed problem where it's determined by many different universities and many different law schools. And so for that reason, no one can really tamp down the grade inflation, although Harvard is famously trying, for example, but that's one school out of thousands and thousands of undergrads. The 180 they can cut, though. The 180 they can keep that prestigious and keep that limited. Calling out, saying maybe they'll bring back the games. Sadly, they are not bringing back logic games anytime soon, if ever. They removed logic games due to a lawsuit settlement agreement. So due to that settlement, they can't bring back games. Games are never coming back, but they can make logical reasoning harder. They can make reading comprehension harder. They can make the quote unquote curve harder as well. Braden's asking, do you think that if you had two very different LSAT scores on file, for example, a 145 and a 175, would that raise any red flags to admissions at top schools? No, it wouldn't, because basically the read on that could be the applicant took the LSAT cold, didn't really study, got a 145. Then they studied really hard and got their score up significantly. People raise their scores up 10, 20, 30 points all the time. Not saying it's easy, not saying it's going to happen overnight, but that is possible. And so it could just be you didn't study and took it cold, then you studied. Not a red flag at all. No reason to be concerned. And law schools also have no incentive to care about the lower score followed by a higher score, because the higher score is what they report to the American Bar Association, which in turn is where the data is pulled from for the U.S. News Law School rankings. They have no reason to care. They won't care, and the law school data backs that up. I Am Gray says, if you go to a lower ranked regional school on a full ride, is that fine? Say near a rank 140 to 150. For a lot of people, that is the better move. Go to a lower ranked law school with more scholarship money than a higher ranked law school with less scholarship money. So going to a low ranked school on a full ride, taking on zero debt, that might be the optimal move. It depends on what you want to do with your degree. If you wanted to go into big law, if you wanted to get a federal clerkship, going to a lower ranked school wouldn't be a good move, because it wouldn't have the prestige, wouldn't have the pipeline to get you that prestigious position. But not everybody wants big law or a clerkship. If you want to work at a local law firm or get a government job, then you may not need the prestigious school, and taking on a lower paying position would be the better move, since you won't be able to pay off massive debt easily. Michael asks, how much will an undergrad 4.0 GPA help me before I've taken the LSAT? Well, 4.0 GPA is a fantastic GPA to have, of course. It'll certainly serve you well. Law school admissions is the combination of your LSAT score and your undergraduate GPA, though. So GPA is just one piece of the puzzle. The LSAT actually weighs more heavily than your undergraduate GPA. So keep that in mind. You want to have the strong LSAT score in addition to the strong GPA, but the GPA will certainly help. So if you've got the GPA locked in, if you're done with undergrad or pretty much finished with it, I would say switch gears and focus on the LSAT. And if you're just getting started with your LSAT prep, you're looking for some support. For those just joining, I'm offering a free LSAT tutoring lesson for everybody watching this now or later. You can book that free tutoring lesson with me at unpluggedprep.com/start. The link is below the video, pinned to the chat in my bio as well. Happy to help you out. One thing we do during those free lessons is we look at where you're currently scoring, what your goal score is, what your time frame is, and then we help you map out a plan to get you from your starting point to your goal score between now and your target LSAT test date. A lot of folks right now are taking the LSAT in the fall, in August, September, October, November. You can take any one of those LSATs. It gives you roughly 2 to 5 months to study, which is a good amount of time. More is always better, of course. Most folks take 3 or 4 months, and that's totally fine. If you want to start earlier, of course, we can definitely help you take full advantage of all that time that you have. We always personalize the study plan to your time frame. And Shay's asking, can you still sign up for the online LSAT? Yes, you can. LSAT registration is open. For those who aren't aware, there is a new LSAT registration rule where the order in which you register for the LSAT determines the order in which you get to schedule your LSAT slot. For those who aren't aware, you register for the LSAT months in advance potentially, but you only schedule your specific day and time for that testing month a few weeks prior. And with the LSAT going back to in-person testing, there are limited slots. The best locations, the best days and times get picked first. And so I would strongly recommend that you register for the LSAT now if you have an idea of when you might want to take it. And you can always change your testing date later, and law schools will never even know that you were signed up for a different testing date. So plan ahead, sign up now if you can. Nicole asks, if you have a high LSAT score and a low GPA, should you write an addendum? Quite possibly, yes. I mean, it depends on the circumstances under which you got that low GPA. Was there something happening during college that led you to get the low GPA? Was there a medical issue, a family issue, something personal that you might want to share with the law school to give them additional context on the circumstances there? Definitely share it if you feel so moved to do it. It's useful context for them. At the same time, though, the numbers are the numbers. And so the best thing you can do to offset lower numbers is to have higher numbers to compensate for them. If you have a low GPA, you want to balance it with a higher LSAT score. If you have a low LSAT score, balance it out by retaking the LSAT and canceling out that lower score with the following higher score. Ultimately, the numbers are going to speak for themselves. Vanch is asking when to take the LSAT. Take the LSAT whenever you're ready. Whenever you feel like you're scoring at or above your goal score, then we go back from there to when should you study for the LSAT, and the answer is when you have time to study for the LSAT. If you have a lighter period at work, if you're working, if you have a lighter semester, if you could take a lighter course load during that time, then that's the best time to knock out the LSAT. Your LSAT scores are good for 5 years, and so you can take it even as a sophomore or junior in college and then apply during senior year in the fall. A lot of folks will do that just to plan ahead and knock it out of the way. It's your choice, of course. Or you could take it when you've already graduated college and then work for a year or two. A lot of folks do that too. Gaze is asking, how much emphasis do law schools place on your GPA and your LSAT score? Will they at least look at your written essay and application if you are under their median GPA or LSAT? So there are going to be some cutoffs under which law schools aren't really going to consider your application. If your numbers are below their medians, you're fighting an uphill battle there. If you're on the cusp, if you're close, then of course they might still look at your softs. But the process is incredibly numbers driven. Unlike undergraduate admissions, where your softs play a much larger role, for law school, it's really your LSAT score number 1, GPA number 2. Everything else is a distant third, and that's because of the massive undue influence of the US News Law School rankings, which for some reason have this incredible hold on the popular imagination and people's perception of these law schools and their prestige. And so law schools fight tooth and nail to keep and maintain and ideally raise their standing in the US News rankings. What happens is the law schools report the median LSAT and the GPA of their entering classes to the American Bar Association. They are required to do so. In turn, US News then pulls that data for inclusion in the law school rankings. And the rankings determine the prestige of the school, which then helps them attract more applicants in the following years. It also helps them get donations from alumni and helps them get their students placements as well in jobs. And so if your numbers are sufficiently low, the essays are not going to make a difference. Will law schools look at the essays? Yes, of course they will. If you were asking about the writing sample, that's unscored, doesn't really play a significant role in any way, although law schools are pushing LSAC to score the writing sample, which they will likely do in the next few years. Maybe the writing sample will become more important because a lot of folks are writing their application essays with AI, and so it becomes meaningless there, whereas in contrast, your writing sample is proctored, and so for that reason, they're going to know that you wrote it yourself. And so focus on the LSAT. That's the biggest thing you can do. And so if I think the question behind the question is implying that maybe your GPA and LSAT aren't what you would like them to be. And if your GPA isn't what you would have liked, of course, that may be a done deal if you've already finished undergrad, but your LSAT score is still the one big number that you can move. You can retake the LSAT. Law schools do not take the average of multiple LSAT scores. They only take into consideration the highest LSAT score on your record. And that means that there's no downside to retaking the LSAT. It's offered coming up. We've got August, September, October, and November. If you're kind of just getting started now, You could aim for any one of those LSATs, maybe aim for August and have September as a backup, or aim for October and have November as a backup. You've got multiple at-bats available to yourself. And so I would take advantage of those. And of course, if you want to talk through your options, you can book a free LSAT tutoring lesson with me. It's at unpluggedprep.com/start. If you're not ready for that yet, you can grab the free LSAT cheat sheet at unpluggedprep.com/cheat sheet. It's a quick reference on everything logical reasoning and reading comprehension. It's a free PDF download that you can grab in my bio, in the link below the video as well. I'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 Central, 11 Pacific. I'll see you all then. In the meantime, all the best and take care. Thanks for joining.